You know I'm here to provide the gems, and I'm here today to tell you about the best EP of the year so far, and honestly, it's that bloody good. I don't even know if any other EP this year can come close. This could quite easily end up being the best EP of 2023. James Ivy has got to be one of the most exciting up-and-coming artists out there for me at the moment. With a couple of EPs under his belt now, I think his music has something really, really special to offer, and I think there is bags of potential with not only what he could bring to the table with his talent, but bags of potential with like popularity. I think this guy could be pretty huge given a few years. I do keep saying this about a lot of artists out there though, but I'm going to get one of them right at some point, and James Ivy is one I definitely want to be hedging my bets on, because I definitely think there is something to this guy. He has a real knack for melody. His delivery is super earnest and warm, and there's a sweetness to his voice as well that I just think is really, really accessible to a lot of different people out there. And I, for one, I'm just absolutely loving this EP. And for me as a listener, I don't tend to like rinse music. I'm no Buffalo Staple, you know. I don't play an artist over and over and over and over again to the point where, you know, they've got one album out and it's like 1,000 scrobbles on my Last FM or something. I'm not really like that, and I'm still not really like that with this EP. I'm not going to go as far as to saying that I'm, you know, playing it loads and loads, but for my listening habits, for a 7-track EP, I've definitely been playing this a lot more compared to other albums and EPs of a similar length, because usually I would not play music this much, but I'm really, really getting a lot out of this EP, and I've been playing it way more than I usually would be playing other EPs. There's probably someone out there with like 18,000 scrobbles on James Ivy and they're going to be like, but I'm just saying for me, I'm playing this a lot, and that is definitely indicative of how good this EP bloody is. We get to start off with L Trip. The drums on this one are so good. There is a shoegaze atmosphere, the shoegaze haziness to this song that I really like, and I think there are some really cool influences that end up coming through in James Ivy's music as well. You've got the shoegaze on this track, but other tracks offer something a little bit different, which is quite cool. Surprisingly welcome to the boy band feel of some of these tracks, like Stereo Play, or even another track like Silly Love, which do really sound like early 2000s boy band sort of busted era, but also like, you know, a bit of Backstreet Boys mixed in as well. I don't know what it is particularly. It might be the way he's kind of bringing out his vocal melodies and the instrumentation that's backing it, that just kind of has that nostalgic sound to it, but I'm welcoming it because I think he's pulling it off really well, and I like the sweetness of these tracks. They're really catchy. The choruses are just so hooky and sticky, and the melodies are just really, really strong, and I think he's doing a lot with his voice, despite the fact that he sometimes has quite like a smoky delivery, but sticks with you and sticks out really nicely as well. Everything Perfect reminds me a lot of George Clanton, and there are a few moments on this album that I'm just getting flashbacks to Slide, the album, and anything that reminds me of that is always a good thing, because I just feel like that album just has this really interesting sound to it that I just don't really feel has been replicated very often. I'm not saying that, you know, George Clanton invented something totally new on that album or anything like that. I just think the feeling that the album gives you is pretty unique to a lot of other albums, and friggin' hell, Everything Perfect just throws me right back to 2018 hearing that album. And then the George Clanton feel kind of comes back again on Involved, but in a totally different way, and I do actually think James must be influenced by George here, because it can't be two different tracks reminding me of George but also reminding me of him in totally different contexts, because this track has a really baggy feel to it, you know, the 90s baggy sound, and of course George Clanton recently has been doing that on his most recent stuff. So yeah, a very weird little mix of feelings here, getting from another artist, but in a really good way, without comparing to him to someone else too much, because that's not really what I'm trying to do here. But Involved again is just such a good tune, man. His vocals sound fantastic on this track, and yeah, shout out honestly to George Clanton, James Ivy, and also Hatchie for bringing back the baggy sound from the 90s and the late 80s, early 90s here, because this is not a sound that you hear much very often these days, and these three artists bringing it back in the way that they are, in such a good way too, in the underground of music right now is really cool, and kind of brings out some potential for this to become like a bit more of a more mainstream trend, especially if any of these artists take off, or if, you know, a more popular artist just kind of copies what these guys are doing, because that tends to happen actually. But yeah, the former there is exciting to me. The idea of any of these three artists taking off with this sounding, bringing back a trend of baggy music into the mainstream, kind of would be pretty cool. Incredibly unlikely. I don't think it would happen, but would be very cool. And if it did happen, you can come to this video and go, wait, Ryan, you said it might happen. You said it first. Yay! I want to mention the final track, The Last Place You'd Ever Look. Really great, catchy track, this one. Probably the most tuneful on this album. And perhaps if you were to list, you know, pick out a track for anyone to just kind of stick on as their first track, you might want to suggest this one, because it just is really poppy. It's really, really melodic. It's really sticky. And there are other tracks on this EP that I like that as well. But I just think this one probably sticks out in the best kind of way in that sense. And reminds me way too much of the 1975. There is such a Matty Healy feel to the vocals here. And to be fair, if you're, you know, a fan or a hater of the 1975, I do think this is probably the best version of them. You know, when they're really at their best, they make some great pop tunes. And this is just so reminiscent of that for me. Can't sign this EP review off though without mentioning Under Tongs. You're probably thinking, is he really not going to mention this track? Especially if you know this EP. But I could not mention it, my friend. Good God, Under Tongs has had me in a chokehold in 2023. Love this song, played it so much at this point. Been easily one of my favourites of the year. This track is just so life affirming. And again, that kind of gush of feeling of, you know, something like Slide as an album, that life affirming feel. And that feeling, I can't explain it. I always say life affirming. There's no other way to just make it make sense, but it's just like this like really cool coming of age feel. It just makes you feel like you've got everything at the palm of your hands whenever you hear this song. There's just something so good about it. And I don't know how artists make this sound like this sound. I don't know how you do it, but there's something about this track that just totally makes me feel that way. And it is just such a good song. And again, the earnest delivery is great. The instrumentation is so good. The chorus, again, sticks out so well. Of course, with the lyrics where he's talking about, you know, are you loving me for me, or just the idea of it. It's definitely an idea that's been said before, particularly in films and, you know, in other songs too. But I just think the way he's saying it just makes it hit that all extra special harder. You know, the way he just sounds quite desperate, the way he sounds just so longing for that person, and just identifying the actual realization of like, ah shit, actually they I don't think they love me for me. It's pretty sad, but there's something so beautiful about the way he's delivering it as well. Just such a great song. This has got to be one of the best songs of the year for me, for sure. And I could say that about all 7 of these tracks. This is just an absolute hit of an EP. But if I were picking one, Under Tongs is the one that sticks with me, man. Got to be in my top 10 by the end of the year. We have had an excellent year. If we get to the end of the year and I make my list and this isn't the top 10, like it's going to be an insane year if this doesn't make the top 10. I'm pretty sure it will though. Love this song. So yeah, ending it there. This is a great EP, one of the best of the year. Love it so much. I just feel like it's pouring out with so much love and dedication to how the music is crafted on this, man. I really appreciate all the influences coming through. This is such a cool modern twist on all of these sounds, and at the core of it, it is essentially just pop music, but it's a bit more, you know, detailed, and lots of intricacies from all the influences coming through. It is great. It's so good. Definitely think this could strike a lot in a lot of people. Really think this is a gem right here for a lot of people. Hopefully you check it out based on my review. As always, I don't really rate EPs in my reviews. Let me just tell you though, one of the best of the year. Such good music here. Please tell me your thoughts on it if you've heard it. If you haven't, check it out, then come back to the video, then let me know, then subscribe as well. Have a good day and goodbye.